Why did I try and come this way? Oh yeah, well done, Charlie. Really good idea. Let's just take a shortcut through that impenetrable forest. Why don't we do that again? Oh, definitely. Oh yeah, that'll save loads of time.
Hi, I'm Charlie. I'm on a walk across the UK.
Oh,
At least I was before I decided to take a shortcut. You see that look in my eyes? That, my friends, is the look of someone who is well and truly lost. And worryingly, for someone who's attempting to walk the length of Great Britain, this isn't exactly the first time I've lost the path.
I've been wandering around for about an hour. I took a wrong turning. I immediately regret crossing that river. I'm lost. Really not sure where to go here. I've lost the path again. Where is the track, guys? Probably should have looked at the map before I went into that. Because now I'm just on a railway track.
Anyway, I'm trying my best to stay positive, so I thought, this time, why don't I just act like a guy who isn't lost? Then a path might materialise miraculously in front of me, like it does for people in movies who are just carelessly wandering through the woods. So, here is me doing my best impression of a guy who is most definitely not lost in a forest somewhere on the west coast of Scotland, but instead is exactly where he's meant to be. Utterly unconcerned with where he is specifically on the map right now, because who needs maps, right? This here, this pretty light on my face, this is actually what it's all about. Human photosynthesis. Shinrin yoku. Forest bathing. Sun worship has just evolved alongside us since we were plants, obviously. And who the hell needs a path to follow anyway when you can just bathe in glorious dappled sunlight? Take a deep breath in. I'm not lost. I'm not lost. I'm not lost. And of course, as you've probably already guessed, my pretending not to be lost and chakra breathing while stroking a tree worked like a charm. Right at that moment, a beautiful butterfly fluttered into the air above me, like a tiny little furry guardian angel, and led me straight back to the path. A path called the End-to-End Trail that I'd been following for 2 months by this point, a path that had already burnt through 3 pairs of trainers and was now leading me even further north into the Highlands of Scotland, where paths would eventually cease to exist altogether. But as long as there were magical butterflies to guide me, and perhaps if I actually checked my map a bit more, then maybe, just maybe, I'd make it to the end. This is my account of a walking journey I took across the UK. In April of 2021, I set off from Britain's most southwesterly point at a place called Gwennap Head.
Okay, so this is Gwennap Head.
Yep, that's me.
I'm standing on the most southwesterly point of the main island of Great Britain.
Or the me that walked it. I'm gonna apologise for how annoying he can get in advance. Anyway, the plan was for me to walk from corner to corner across the main island of Great Britain, ending at its most northeasterly point of Duncansby Head. Both points are pretty near the traditional start and end point signs for a walk across the UK, Land's End to John O'Groats, or Le Jog for short. The way I'd chosen to follow was called the End-to-End Trail, and it wasn't exactly the most direct. The End-to-End Trail is a largely off-road route route that winds and twists across England, Wales and Scotland for nearly 2,000 kilometres, avoiding towns and tarmac wherever possible. If you're ever thinking of walking from Land's End to John O'Groats, then taking an off-road route does add a lot of extra miles, but in my opinion, they are all exceedingly worth it. Walking along main roads is dangerous. It's noisy, it's dirty, it's a bit ugly, and it's bone-shatteringly boring. Instead, a route like the End-to-End Trail takes you straight through the heart of the country. Along my way, I got to come across sand flats, through ancient hunting forests, and over mountain baylands. I crossed rivers and reservoirs, railway tracks and ridgelines. I slept in my tent along the way, pitching wherever I could at the day's end. I slept on cliff tops, mountain passes, sand dunes, riverbeds, and forest floors. I washed in the streams and lochs I passed, drank from brooks, natural springs and sacred wells, and, of course, I walked, carrying my sleeping bag, my tent, my food and my water. I walked along shorelines, cliff paths and ancient boundary walls. I walked through graveyards and under forest canopies, along ley lines and disused railway tracks. I followed Mesolithic drove roads and brand new national trail routes. Some of the paths were well waymarked, some only just visible in the moonlight, with quartz-tinted cairns to guide my way across the moor. And as I stepped along these strange and varied arteries of the country, I felt as though I was beginning to stitch together an understanding and connection with the land in which I lived, and how generations of people had passed by these ways long before me. Speaking of people, my friends and family joined me for some of the challenging stretches of the trail, and to them, I will always be eternally grateful. Their company and encouragement was what kept me going through the really difficult days. But, for the most part, I was on my own. I walked far, every day, usually until my feet couldn't take it anymore, when I would collapse gratefully to the ground and pitch my tent. Over the course of my walk, I became more content than I've ever been in my entire life. Sure, I had some hard days. I sometimes struggled with frustration, or boredom, or loneliness. I was physically drained almost all the time, and being a type 1 diabetic on my own meant there was always the fear of hypoglycemia at the back of my mind. If something went wrong, and I lost consciousness, it would be unlikely that anyone would find me for a while. But I truly loved it. Every single second. The mud, the midges, the sound of my sodden socks squelching up the mountain. I loved the sense of adventure, the simplicity of it all, and having time to connect with the natural world. Being constantly uncomfortable in nature unlocked something in me, something I hadn't known before. A long-distance walk is a difficult thing to put into words, but this film is my attempt to try and communicate some of what I experienced along the way.